Hello there and welcome to The Brief. This is Tuesday's edition and I'm Jessy Chahal. It is 2 p.m. and just a few moments ago, we've heard from the Prime Minister and he just announced that the government will be allowing a special EPF withdrawal of up to 10,000 ringgit. More details will be hashed out by the Ministry of Finance in due time, and of course, we'll be giving you those updates as we get them from the relevant ministries as well. And joining me on today's show is Crisis Management Analyst Nordin Abdullah to walk us through on the trade impact of global sanctions on Russia. And in a while later, I will speak to Datuk Muhammad Khalid Harun, President of the Malaysia Association Tour Agency, or better known briefly as MATTA. Well, here's a quick look at what's happening locally. First up, from Parliament, the government aims to set up 10,000 EVs or electric vehicles charging stations come year 2025 under the Low Carbon Mobility Development Plan. Now, this project is in collaboration with the Malaysian Green Technology and Climate Change Corporation, all aiming to set targets and help to achieve the government's aim with this. According to the Deputy Minister of International Trade and Industry, there's an estimated total of about 600 charging stations set nationwide. From other updates at the Parliament, the Election Commission has no plans to extend the postal voting to Sabah and Sarawak voters who are residing in the peninsula during the 15th general election. Instead, voters are recommended to apply for change of voting constituency based on their latest place of residence. So there will be updates there as well. And the newly elected Johor Menteri Besar Datuk On Hafiz Ghazi began his official duties at Bangunan Datuk Jaafar Mohamad in Kota Iskandar earlier this morning. Yesterday, the Assemblyman took his oath before the Sultan of Johor, Sultan Ibrahim Almarhum Sultan Iskandar. And at the UMNO General Assembly, Vice President Datuk Seri Mazir Khalid urges debaters to convey proposals related to the people's issues as well as the party's struggle. One of the public's main concerns include economic recovery, which the UMNO-led government wanted to achieve at the federal level. The 4-day event kicks off with the opening of the Women, Youth and Puteri General Assemblies, followed by respective meetings of the three wings on Thursday, policy speech and inauguration by the party president on Friday, as well as debates that will continue up till the weekend on Sunday. Now, 65.3% of adults in the country have already received their booster shots. 97.5% have completed their vaccination, while 98.7% have received at least one dose of vaccine. With all those updates, it's now time to bring in our crisis management analyst, Nordin Abdullah, to weigh in a little bit on the global sanctions on Russia and its impact on trade. Nordin, welcome back to the brief. Just a few moments earlier, we've in fact just heard from the Prime Minister, who announced that the government will be allowing a special EPF withdrawal of up to 10,000 ringgit. What are some of your thoughts around this as we spearhead into the recovery phase, and of course knowing that in just a couple of weeks our borders will be open?
Well, I think it will probably be welcome liquidity into the market, and of course, EPF just announced a 6% dividend. So I think it's good that people will be in a sense using some of those dividends for that. Of course, in terms of long-term stability for the country, it has to be weighed up against people's long-term financial requirements. But obviously, the government has done that, and they've made the decision, and they're moving forward with it. So I think now when we look at those who will be and how many people will actually withdraw is another thing. So I think when we look at the follow on from the recent floods, the of course, we've just spent 2 years in COVID lockdowns and MCOs. So I think it's getting access to resources to get the economy moving again. And I think that is obviously, you can't have a long-term vision if you can't get through the the now horizon. And I think that's where we are right now. So if that's the crisis management solution that the government has taken, I think we've got to deal with it as such and take advantage of it, those who can and those who want to. Now is the opportunity to do so. Of course, it's always a lot of scammers who do look at these kind of opportunities. And we saw the Malaysian police during the floods, ramp up their activities around managing and monitoring scams. So just be aware, while this is an opportunity for people to recover, it's also a wonderful opportunity for criminals to jump on the bandwagon as well.
Speaking of opportunity, that word, when you look at it from a macro point of view, we look at the Russian invasion. In fact, the Russians are calling it a special military operation. All of this has really affected global energy market prices. And in fact, since February 24th, these prices have skyrocketed. The wave of US and European sanctions against the former Soviet Republic, which also supplies around 40% of Europe's gas, all has been affected. Now, EU leaders, as of last week, Nordin, agreed to cut their reliance on Russian fossil fuels, but they still remain divided over whether to cap gas prices and to sanction oil imports. There's also some discord among the 27 EU countries over whether to allow the US, which announced a ban on Russian oil and gas imports, and Britain, which it says that it will do by the end of this year. So, Nordin, with all this, in the background, especially with trade in view here, how bad will all of this affect Asia? And most importantly, what would be the blockback for us on this? I believe that you still feel it's a knee-jerk reaction at this point.
I do, Jessy. A lot of markets are obviously nervous when they hear the word sanction. But really, when we talk about sanctions, and I think the first thing we should do is step back and look at what is being sanctioned at the moment and what is the objective of the sanctions. The objective is to slow down, in a sense, the war effort or the special military operation, if Russia likes to call it that, so that they are able, so the Western nations and those who are opposing the conflict or the invasion of Ukraine, not Iran. Sorry, Iran popped up there for a second. That this is the way they are sending a clear message to Russia. I think it's very important to understand, Jessy, that the nature of conflict has changed. The nature of war has changed. We're not just seeing an attack on the people of Ukraine. We are seeing an attack on supply chains. We are seeing attacks on institutions, financial institutions, through cyber incursions. We're seeing information war. All of this has come together in one foul swoop. That sanctions are really just one piece of the puzzle right now, and I don't think, from a Malaysian exporting point of view, if you're a company who exports to Russia currently, or any of those countries that are further looking to export onto Russia, you need to look at whether those items that you're exporting are actually on the list or not, because business is still. I know you. I just want to say this last one.
I just wanted to know. Go ahead. I just wanted to bring up the slide, that chart again for viewers to follow our discussion. Nordin.
Exactly, and Jessy, what we're seeing here, yes, there's massive amounts of sanctions going on right now for all these different countries, but business is still happening between these countries, and the European Union and the United States still do business with Russia. So it's a question from Malaysian exporters and Malaysian producers: are any of those items that we produce here, and specifically your company, are being impacted at the moment? And by and large, I think a lot of the answers are no. Of course, there are some sectors that are going to be called into question further on, but I think at this stage at the moment, at the game of play, it's relatively low impact.
Right. Back home here, the Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry say that they are looking into alternatives, including setting two prices for cooking oil, one for domestic and another tag for export. Is this something that will work, and will we see this in the short term.
Exactly. In this sense, palm oil has now become an even more sought after commodity. So if the government decides to, in a sense, subsidize through pricing mechanisms domestic consumer pricing, I think it's a good idea, because there's the offset of the increased value on the international market. So it's well within the Malaysian government's ability to do so, and also for the corporations themselves, they should start thinking about this even before the government moves in, as a way of becoming a more socially responsible and domestically facing company. I think it's a good idea. But food prices, food-based inflation during these global conflicts will continue to be a concern. Luckily, Malaysia has its own domestic production in this sense.
Nordin, thank you for your time and for your insights as well. We'll speak to you again tomorrow. That was Nordin Abdullah, our crisis management analyst, weighing in on global sanctions and, of course, also what the Prime Minister just recently announced, in fact, just a few moments ago, about EPF withdrawal. The government is allowing 10,000 ringgit. Well, let's move on to business in brief. The ringgit improved at the opening today as the greenback retreated slightly as of 9:06 a.m. today. $1 is 4 ringgit 19 cent. And Bursa ended higher as buying support continued in most indices, led by construction and energy counters. FBM KLCI climbed 2.77 points to 1560.18. And here's a quick look at gold prices. As of 9:30 a.m. today, the physical price of gold stands at 200 ringgit and 251.21 cent ring excuse me 251 ringgit and 21 cent per gram, down 2 ringgit 16 cent from yesterday. Of course, that will fluctuate as well, and we will look for more updates in the hours to follow. Malaysia Airports Holdings Berhad share price rose 1.15% this morning, backed up by the VTL by Air program, and expected on airport retail sales to recover as international borders reopen in just a few weeks come April. MAHB and the Ministry of Transport announces receiving approval from the Ministry of Health to implement the test and release arrival process, and that will begin today. Let's move on to international news. What's happening globally? South Korean airlines are set to sharply raise fuel surcharges on international routes in April due to soaring jet fuel prices. And beginning 1st of April, the surcharge for one-way tickets on international routes ranging between 28,600 to 211,900 won, all depending on the route chosen. Industry watchers are saying that fuel surcharges are likely to go down in May on hopes of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine and concerns over waning oil demand in China. Well, with the borders opening and travel and tourism set to boom once again, I'd like to, of course, bring in my feature guest for today, Datuk Muhammad Khalid Harun, President of MATTA. As we prepare to open for the tourism, of course, we have a lot of points to talk about. Datuk, welcome to the program. How is the opening up of the tourism sector and the hospitality industry? How is this going to benefit us, for starters? And moving on further, has the relief packages by the government done enough to support these operators and industry players till this point, Dato?
Yes, thanks to the government for the news on the opening of borders effective 1st of April 22. Well, this is a good news. Is a kickstart to our economy, not only in tourism but all sectors of the economy. Anyway, after 2 years of depression because of the MCOs and the pandemic, we were really impacted, and of course the government came in to revive the sector by giving us the grants and aid. So what happened is the government have put in about 1.215 billion ringgit to revive the industry. And of course, in terms of tax incentive, 1.12 billion, on loan moratorium, 35 billion, HRDF, 640 million, ease of doing business, 400 million, electrical subsidies, grant and cash assistance come to about 119 million, training, 17 million, per caso, 13.8 billion, financial loans, 58 million via
Right. So we're hearing these
special.
numbers, and of course, they are big numbers. But to this point in time, has this relief packages been enough? And as we open borders, will it be enough to help them
of
kickstart some of their activities and
uh,
business?
well, to some SMEs, a small one is quite sufficient for them to start back. When we started the bubble, the Langkawi tourism bubble, that is for
Right.
domestics. But then for the huge sectors, I don't think is suffice. However, some travel agent, there are good news when the government again for this year, they are going to give every travel agent who are registered with MOTAC will be given $9,000 subsidy for this year, and this is again will help the travel agents to restart their doing their packages and to do their promotions. Anyway, whether it is enough or not, but 9,000 is, I think, sometimes you do a website, so it's already cost you about much more than that. So
Mm.
this is depending on what is enough to the need of a travel. However, we are thankful to the government for giving us the subsidy.
Right. Dato,
Anyway,
we've also heard, unprecedented times have called for unprecedented actions and moves as
yes,
well. And after such a long time, finally, our
yes,
international borders will be opening. Let's take
yes.
a bit of a look at that. What is the targeted number of tourists arriving upon the opening of our borders? Basically, what are some of the factors that are going to influence the influx of tourists that we should be expecting?
Okay, I'm starting with what are the factors that will contribute to the numbers of visitors to come in. Here we need to have a very aggressive, serious promotions of what we are doing. So we are starting to now, as of yesterday, we started our VTL opening. That is about Thailand, Cambodia, and eventually we are going to open up our first world effective from 1st April. Now, with this start, we need to really tell the world that we are now open. So
Mhm.
what else do we need to do? All right. In order to convince people to come here, there must be some sort of incentive. So, what kind of incentive that we should think of? Say, for example, people want to come here, they need to have visas. So maybe ease of doing visas is one thing. And of course, if you can going back to visa on arrivals, this is very effective in terms of getting numbers into Malaysia. And
Right,
again,
that's but if I could jump in, it would perhaps be needed to be customized, meaning to say some promotional initiatives or activities maybe be offered to attract a certain number of visitors from a certain country from a different part of the world. So, having said that, is there sort of more customized packages like this, and which continent do you think we can expect the bulk of visitors to come from at this point?
yeah, there are well, the government has started with India, but even when the MCO began, so it stopped that for a while. Maybe now when it starts up, when we are thinking of opening, maybe we can redo this similar thing, and again with China, and of course with many other countries. Uh, in terms of what you say is customized. So when you think that which country a green zone, and then we preferably they are coming back to us with this
Right.
kind of incentive visa. Secondly, when you experience when you putting up incentive like tourism waiver, tax. This is very very good for the hotels. In order to get more people to come here, if we have this kind of tax incentive, it's also good. Then again, we need to have a very what people say seamless kind of journey coming to Malaysia. So what I mean is this: we don't want any hassle when we are promoting our destination. It should be a destination that whereby people love to come. When they come here, they experience the journey of no hassle. Malaysia
right.
is a friendly country. So
A fuss-free experience from the time they leave to the time they
yes,
land.
certainly.
Sadly enough, the tourism industry has been the most impacted, not just here in Malaysia, but of course worldwide as well.
Well,
But
yeah.
locally, many iconic landmarks, hotels had to close. Istana Hotel, for example, comes to mind. Will there be any conversations about how we can resurrect some of these landmarks, versus also things like the nightlife, which is very important to tourists as they come in as well. Do we still want for it, but we don't want to talk about it in the forefront? I know it's a power pack question. I have only a minute left on the clock with you, Dato.
Okay. I do hope this hotel like Istana, and a few more other giants hotel, five-star hotel, which have been closed. Hopefully they are coming back, because without them, I think we feel their absence. Hopefully they are coming back. Now, in terms of nightlife, as what you say, is all this depend on the government's incentive, whether they are going to they are going to give back to the operators for the clubs to open. And this is again, it's a local authorities. It's very difficult for us to say.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if we do need, as you say, because even though different culture, we have to adapt to a situation whereby nightlife is a part of an entertainment in
Industry.
culture. Yes.
That's right.
So this is something that the government have to look into, whereby if they are going to give back the permits to operate.
Dato, I'd like to thank you for your time and wish you and the association members, as well as all the industry players and operators, all the very best come the next few weeks. We'll speak to you soon. That was Dato Muhammad Khalid Harun, President of MATTA, joining us and weighing in a little bit on the opening of borders. Let's take a quick look at what's happening internationally. In international news, Russia has quit the Council of Europe, the continent's leading human rights watchdog, preempting an upcoming expulsion over its attack on Ukraine.
Form the assembly that
Behind Russia's departure, but the decision also has concrete consequences, as the Council will seize Russians from being able to appeal to the European Court to Human Rights against their government. In the meantime, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says that the world needs to detach from Russia's oil and gas ahead of a visit to Saudi Arabia later this week. He says working with Saudi Arabia to increase the production of oil is part of building a wide coalition to prevent Putin from succeeding in Ukraine. And here's some unfortunate news to share with you. A Fox News cameraman, Pierre Zarzuski, and Ukrainian journalist Alessandra Kushinova were killed in Ukraine after the vehicle in which they were traveling was struck by incoming fire. The cameraman, age 55, a veteran war zone photographer as well, was reporting when he came under attack near Kyiv. Meanwhile, Kushinova, 24, was in the midst of helping Fox's news crew navigate the area and gather information, as well as speak with sources. At least 4 journalists on duty have died in nearly 3 weeks since Russia's attack on Ukraine. Now on to news from the Middle East. 1,000 Syrians protest in Idlib to mark the 11th anniversary of the start of the war, which since 2011 has killed hundreds of thousands and displaced millions. Protesters demonstrated waving Syrian flags, calling for the release of thousands of political prisoners, many of whom were detained for participating in peaceful protests or for expressing dissenting political opinion. The war has killed hundreds of thousands and forced many more to flee since spiraling protests against President Bashar al-Assad in March of 2011. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, UN's High Commissioner for Refugees calls attention to the humanitarian crisis in the country, while the world attention is focused on Ukraine. He highlights that while ensuing Ukraine's refugee crisis was rightly focused, the international community should not neglect Afghanistan, as the people are still struggling with dire economic situation. And in Myanmar, its military has engaged in systematic human rights violations using airstrikes and heavy weapons on populated areas, deliberately targeting civilians. UN urges meaningful action by the international community, reporting victims being shot in the head, burned to death, arrested, tortured, or used as human shield. And here's what's trending on Twitter today. On Hafiz Ghazi hikes up the list as he reports for duty as Johore's 19th chief minister earlier this morning. And in sports, Malaysia's very own Shireen Velaboy emerged as the queen of indoor 400 meters at the second-tier US College Athletics. Of course, she's the first Malaysian female runner to go under 54 seconds in indoor 400 meters, breaking the national record of 54.58 seconds by Nursila Mohamed Khalid back in 2006. Well, that's all from me today and the team on The Brief. Thanks for tuning in to Bernama TV. Of course, keep it locked on for more updates coming your way. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.